Welcome to Bookbinding Basics with Bookcraft Supply Company. I'm Rachel Hillberg and I will be your bookbinding instructor today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about cutting and squaring our bookboard, because if we're making books, we want to make sure that all of our corners are going to be at right angles. Some of the tools and materials you're going to need are, of course, your bookboard. Here at Bookcraft Supply Company, we have two different thicknesses. We have the 1/16 inch of bookboard, a little thinner, and then we have the 1/8 inch bookboard. As far as tools go, you are going to want a square tool or right angle tool. You of course will want a pencil to mark your right angles, and you'll either want some kind of sharp blade, or if you have the room and the budget, you might have a bookbinding tool like a board cutter that we have in our studio here. But if not, a handy dandy Olfa blade we'll use. This is the most beloved blade used by many bookbinders, and you've got snap-off blades, which are really handy because you can break them off as they become dull, and you're going to want to do that quite often when you're cutting your bookboard. So you're going to want to start with your right angle tool and your pencil. So we are going to start, you can really start anywhere. I like to start, because I'm right-handed, at my bottom right corner. And I'm going to line up the bottom of my right angle tool with the bottom of the board so that it's perfectly straight. And depending on how good of a condition your edges are in, you probably want to not go too thin because it'll be hard to cut a straight line. I'm just going to chop off about 1/8 of an inch. So I've got my bottom of my square tool lined up, and I can see already that this right hand side is not super square yet. So I'm just going to make a line along the side. Then another thing that we're going to want to use next is our ruler. You want to get kind of a thicker metal ruler. The thinner ones are really nice and lightweight, but this I find just a little bit more protective for my fingers. Just important. You see more injuries with X-Acto blades than a lot of other power tools, because I think people respect power tools a lot more than this tiny little knife, but these are very sharp and you want them to be. But watch your fingers. I'm gonna line up my ruler now with that pencil line that I made. And so when you're cutting with your blade, rather than try to go in too deep and kind of dig it into your board and cut all the way through in one cut, we want to use a series of shallower cuts. And that way we just make sure that we don't have any slippage of the ruler. And you know, if the ruler were to move, if you've started like you're halfway through your board, you can kind of line up again, not have a wobbly little cut. So all right, there we go. We have a nice clean cut. Not only have we squared up this corner of our board, but there's no fraying on the edge of our board either. So it's nice and flat. It's going to be a nice edge of our book here. So I am going to turn my bookboard clockwise, because we know this is square, so we know that this is straight and how we want it to be. So now we're going to check this edge. So again, we line up the bottom of our right angle tool and make a pencil line about 1/8 of an inch in from the side. And of course, you know, this is a sample, so this is kind of arbitrary. You're going to want to make sure you know the paper size that you're dealing with, and you know the size book cover that you're wanting to make, obviously, and then you'll measure to those measurements. So I'm just kind of cutting this down. So line up here. Again, a series of shallower cuts. Now, if you're starting to have a little bit more resistance and you're finding it's taking more cuts to get through the board, or you're just kind of having a hard time, that means your blade's getting dull, and you don't want to be cutting with dull blades. It's inefficient, it's going to give you carpal tunnel, etc. And it's more dangerous because you're more likely to kind of bear down on the blade. Again, this is all kind of common sense, but if you've never used an Olfa knife before, they're great. You've got the little end of your clip here, and you're going to take it off, and it has a little slot here that kind of hooks onto this blade and snaps it right off at the line. So you just kind of line it up with the edge of the knife housing and snap it right off. We just have one side left to go. We know these three are straight, and we're going to measure out the rest of our board. So we line this up at our measurement, draw a little pencil line, just like the rest, and make sure it's square. Got our nice fresh blade, and well, see how much easier that was. Now I'm using the thinner board to demonstrate, so it might take a few more cuts to work on the thicker board, but it's worth it.
And that's it. You know how to square and cut your own book boards by hand. Thanks for joining us for Bookbinding Basics. For more videos, tutorials, and resources, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit us at www.bookcraftsupply.com.